Meghan Markle stands accused of making her spare, Harry, look like a right royal hypocrite after he spent 1 week wailing over the traumatic assaults on his privacy and the next brazenly courting publicity. The peeved prince's deep desire to be left alone by the prying media was seriously undermined when soon after theatrically weeping in a London court, he pitched up at the Sundance Film Festival, shamelessly exploiting his own celebrity pulling power. Harry's mission was to plug a new movie he co-produced with Meghan. The difficult Duchess was said to have been insistent that her hapless husband was by her side in Utah to help promote Cookie Queens, their harmless but not exactly exciting documentary about Girl Scouts. To be brutally honest, I can't see anyone getting crushed in the turnstiles. But I, for one, simply can wait to see it. Sadly, despite Harry's self-styled magnetic allure, the premiere screening was reported to be somewhat less than a triumph, with the Park City cinema embarrassingly full of empty seats. Worse still, the dim Duke's bid to utilise his royal status to hawk his 91-minute production was slammed as the height of hypocrisy. Is it okay for old ginger nuts to despise reporters when he doesn't want them around and then pretend to like them when he does want them around, when he needs them to get the word out about the Sussexes' latest attempt to make money? You decide. Meanwhile, Mother Meghan's blatant use of her children, or rather the back of their red heads, to promote herself on Instagram also sends conflicting messages. So, do the Duke and Duchess want privacy or publicity? That is the question. Answer? Somehow they demand both. Confused? Aren't we all? Nevertheless, Harry's bitter battle with the British press continued apace as he sat in a London courtroom sobbing about how the tabloids have made his wife's life a misery, which was kind of odd, since Meghan has nothing to do with his legal action against the Daily Mail. He claims the big-selling UK newspaper's ace scoop-getters employed nefarious methods to illegally hack into personal information and intrude on his private life. The Mail calls Harry's allegations preposterous and false. The case, which also involves suing superstars Elton John and Liz Hurley, is expected to take 2 months. But already, after the balding prince's tear-stained 2-hour testimony, the proceedings have shone an unflattering light on the gruesome twosome's entitled insistence on having their cake and eating it too. Their Montecito majesties seem blind to the contradictions inherent in their quest for fame and fortune, strictly on their terms only. Back in Britain, Harry's regal relatives implicitly understand that life in the spotlight is a game of give and take. King Charles and his much spied-upon clan know that they have to accept the rough with the smooth. As Queen Elizabeth famously put it, never complain, never explain. Well, I'm not sure Harry has ever explained his volcanic reaction to red top attention. But boy, oh boy, he sure as hell has complained, almost constantly, loudly, from the rooftops. And then he publishes his nasty little book Spare, in which he invades his own privacy in spectacular style. Let's not go into the gory details. Oh, all right then, let's. Did we really need to know that our intrepid hero contracted frostbite on what he calls his todger and then treated it with his late mum, Princess Diana's favourite lip cream? Was it imperative to reveal how he lost his virginity in a field behind a country pub? Seething sibling William remains furious over the shocking extent of his brother's dynamite disclosures, including the tawdry tale of their princely punch-up. Unable to forgive or forget, fuming Wills remains resolute, foursquare against any peace pact that would see Harry returning to Britain to carry out frontline royal duties and regain his former central role in the king's family fold. It's all a frightful mess. But over in sunny California, it's strange business as usual for Meghan as her ladyship launches her, as ever, special Valentine's Day collection. Nothing says I love you like the so-called strawberry spread trio, a 3-jar box of Scam Jam wrapped up with a red ribbon. Yours for just $42. Or the amorously named Honey Duo gift box, a couple of pots of honey at the knockdown bargain price of $62. Astronomically expensive kitchen produce sealed with a kiss, guaranteed to enchant your swooning partner. Who said romance was dead? Well, Samara, would you like it if your partner handed you a jar of jam for Valentine's Day, or would you divorce him?
I don't know, I'd throw it in his face, honestly. I prefer diamonds. No, the thing is, genuinely, this repackaging is the sort of make or break of Meghan's business at the moment. If she can't shift this product, it's going to go out of date, and then the business will fold. Yeah. That's how it is now with the timeline. So, I don't know. I mean, all she's got is this Hollywood movie that's coming up called The Wedding Date. I mean, it's really dire. I thought it was called
Close Personal Friends.
Oh, well, now it's called The Wedding Date.
Oh, they changed the name.
Yeah, I think they've changed the name.
This is the Nepo Baby film with the son of Dennis Quaid and the daughter of Demi Moore and God knows who. Lily Collins, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean, they're literally grasping at straws here. I think that the brand Sussex is going to die in 2026. That's my prediction, and I just don't think there's anywhere to go from here. I mean, those craven paparazzi photos at that fake charity event just disgust me.
Yeah, you know, you're right. These as ever products, which were unleashed on Instagram only this week, it's just the normal products wrapped up with a ribbon and called the Valentine's Special Collection.
Yeah. Repackaging.
I mean, seriously. I know you're the great Romeo of London.
The truth behind TalkTV's attack on Harry and Meghan. Let's be absolutely clear about what TalkTV is doing before we even touch Harry or Meghan, because this show is not operating in good faith. TalkTV does not exist to explain reality, contextualize events, or interrogate power. It exists to keep a very specific audience emotionally agitated and to reassure them that their hostility is justified. Kevin O'Sullivan is not reacting. He is, week after week, using the same recycled tropes with different packaging. The title alone tells you everything you need to know about the intention. There are no secrets. There is no destruction. There is no horror. These are not factual descriptions. The aim is to frame the Sussexes as chaotic, manipulative, and ridiculous before a single sentence is spoken. This is tabloid theatre pretending to be analysis, loud, sneering, and designed to exhaust critical thinking. And here's what matters. This is not journalism. This is not commentary. This is designed to discipline public figures who refuse to obey the old rules, who dare to walk away from the system, who dare to speak their truth without permission. Every segment, every manufactured outrage, every carefully edited clip is a message. But squaddies, the louder they scream, the more transparent their fear becomes. What TalkTV is really doing. Let's be absolutely clear about what TalkTV is doing before we even touch the substance, because this show is not operating in good faith. TalkTV does not exist to explain reality, contextualize events, or interrogate power. It exists to keep a very specific audience emotionally agitated and to reassure them that their hostility is justified. The hosts are not reacting. They are, week after week, using the same recycled tropes with different packaging. Watch how it works. A headline is presented not as information, but as an emotional assault. There are no revelations. There are no sources. There is no devastation. These are not factual descriptions. The aim is to frame the target as chaotic, manipulative, and ridiculous before a single sentence of analysis is spoken. This is tabloid theatre pretending to be current affairs. Loud, sneering, designed to exhaust critical thinking before it even begins. And here's what matters. The show never stops to ask whether the framing is true, because truth is not the point. The point is to keep the audience angry, to keep them watching, to keep them believing that their contempt is justified and earned. This is not journalism. This is not commentary. This is designed to discipline public figures who refuse to obey the old rules, who walk away, who speak back, who dare to define their own narrative instead of accepting the one written for them. The big lie: privacy versus public life. Here is the distinction that Kevin O'Sullivan and everyone like him will deliberately blur, because admitting it would collapse their entire argument. Privacy means agency. Privacy means consent. It means you choose when your image is used, when your family is exposed, when your vulnerability becomes public property, and when it stays yours alone. This is not hypocrisy. This is the basic architecture of dignity. Harry standing in court to challenge illegal press practices, to stop photographers climbing walls, to stop journalists hacking phones, to stop the machinery of non-consensual exposure. Dawson indo pan tutsuntabon septembun metsaprocorusatapum papapepop Harkadei Sertamarikatsus and Vans Sudsakapurs and that Hayes standard day instance what a project can produce is not a contradiction. It is. One is about stopping unlawful intrusion. The other is about choosing professional participation. The British press pretends not to understand this distinction because admitting it would destroy their favourite weapon, the accusation of hypocrisy itself. They don't want access with consent. They don't want to negotiate, to respect limits, to acknowledge that a person can say yes to some things and no to others. They want access. They want the right to intrude whenever they choose, to exploit whenever it serves their narrative, to frame refusal as arrogance. And when someone, particularly someone who walked away from the institution they're supposed to worship, dares to draw a line, that line becomes the crime. This is not confusion about what privacy means. This is weaponized to punish those who refuse to be endlessly consumed. Why Sundance threatens them. Listen to what's actually happening here, because this is the moment the mask slips entirely. Sundance represents something the old gatekeepers cannot tolerate. Harry didn't ask the palace for approval. He didn't consult the tabloids. He showed up to support a project born from his own creative vision, his own resources, his own agency. And that alone is the threat. The British press doesn't fear that we'll fail. They fear that it won't need them to succeed. That's the real terror underneath all the sneering about empty seats and irrelevance. Because if Harry can build something meaningful without their blessing, without their validation, without bowing to their rules, then the entire architecture of control collapses. But here's what cuts deepest. The conclusion is already written. Whether Sundance succeeds or stumbles, whether the film resonates or fades, the verdict remains. Harry will be mocked either way. Meghan will be dismissed either way. The outcome doesn't matter because the narrative was locked in before the first frame was shot. This isn't critique seeking truth. It's the punishment is the point. The goal is not to evaluate or understand. It's to punish disobedience, to send a message. And that, squaddies, is when you know you're looking at something far darker than commentary. You're watching power trying to reassert dominance over those who refuse to play anymore. The architecture of disciplinary language, how power silences ambition. The labels applied to Meghan are not random descriptors. They are carefully chosen to pathologize her refusal to disappear. Difficult, dictator, demanding. These words carry centuries of weight, historically deployed against women who dare to build, speak, and exist beyond the narrow confines of decorative passivity. They are not critiques of her actions. They are, and here's what matters. Every single one of these labels exists to enforce a singular, unspoken command. She is not punished for failing. She is punished for succeeding. Not for speaking poorly, but for speaking at all. Not for building without permission, but for building at all. The machinery of this smear is relentless because it has a singular purpose: to make the cost of her ambition so unbearable, so socially corrosive, that she will eventually choose silence over struggle. But Meghan didn't disappear. She didn't shrink. She didn't apologize for wanting to work, to create, to matter on her own terms. And that refusal, that absolute refusal to play the role of grateful ornament, is what they cannot forgive. Every attack, every sneer, every manufactured controversy is designed to say the same thing in 1,000 different ways. And the fact that she didn't is the real crime they're prosecuting. The double standard of scrutiny, loyalty over truth. Here's what cuts to the bone of this entire apparatus. Prince Andrew, a man with actual documented disgrace attached to his name, gets a passing joke, a smirk, a footnote barely worth mentioning before we move on to the next segment. He stays quiet. He obeys the system. He plays the game. And for that loyalty he is granted the mercy of being laughed at and forgotten. But Harry, who dared to speak, Harry who chose honesty over silence, Harry who walked away and said, he is treated as a national threat. He is framed as a traitor. Every word he speaks is weaponized. Every choice he makes is scrutinized through a lens so warped it distorts reality itself. This is not about morality. This is not about harm or ethics or protecting anyone. This is about a simple, brutal hierarchy. In this ecosystem, you can be associated with genuine wrongdoing and still survive, as long as you remain obedient. But the moment you question, the moment you resist, the moment you refuse to play your assigned role, the machinery turns against you with a ferocity that has nothing to do with justice and everything to do with enforcement. The outrage is selectively deployed, not based on actual damage, based on disobedience. And that distinction, that terrible, revealing distinction, tells you everything you need to know about what this is really about. The machinery of invented collapse. Here's what happens when a woman builds something outside the permission structure. They don't attack the work, they attack its inevitability. The business smears follow a script so predictable you could set a clock by it. Rumours get dressed up as facts. Speculation gets framed as certainty. Failure gets spoken into being through wish fulfillment, not through any actual economic analysis. There are no audited numbers. No balance, no curiosity about how these ventures actually operate. Just performance. Just the comfortable sound of collapse being narrated in advance, as if repetition alone could make it true. And here's the thing that keeps them up at night. Meghan's independent success, real, tangible, operating entirely outside royal proximity, would shatter the most cherished myth they've constructed. The myth that she needs them, that she needs the palace, that she needs tabloid approval to matter. So failure must be manufactured beforehand. Collapse must be scripted. The ending must be decided before the story even begins, because if she actually succeeds on her own terms, the entire justification for the hostility falls apart. This isn't analysis. This is desperation dressed up as skepticism. And it reveals something crucial. They're not afraid of what she's doing wrong. They're terrified of what she's doing right. The machinery of erasure. When cruelty becomes entertainment. When a mainstream platform begins entertaining questions about whether a woman's children actually exist, we have crossed a line that cannot be uncrossed. This is no longer commentary. This is no longer even satire wrapped in the language of skepticism. This is, plain and simple, the moment when a person is stripped of the most fundamental markers of personhood in order to justify the contempt being levelled against them. And here is what must be said clearly. This tactic reveals the true architecture of the entire enterprise, because questioning a woman's children is not bold. It is not investigative. It is a way of saying, without ever having to admit it, that a woman who refuses to submit, who builds her own life, who speaks her own truth, has forfeited the right to basic human dignity. When you erase someone's motherhood, you erase everything. You erase her choices, her bonds, her agency, her right to privacy around the people she loves most. And this is the moral collapse at the heart of tabloid discourse, the understanding, however unspoken, that step out of line, refuse the script, demand boundaries, and suddenly nothing is sacred. Not your family, not your children, not even the basic recognition that you are a person deserving of respect. This is what happens when an entire system is built not on truth-telling but on enforcement, on discipline, on the punishment of anyone bold enough to walk away. The broken contract and moving forward. Here is the truth that cuts through all the noise. Harry and Meghan did not simply opt out of a life. They shattered an unspoken contract that has governed public figures for generations. That contract whispers a single suffocating demand. When Harry walked into courtrooms to challenge illegal surveillance. When Meghan refused to disappear quietly into dignified obscurity. When they both spoke their truth instead of swallowing it. That ancient agreement fractured irreparably. And everything we witness now, every manufactured scandal, every recycled accusation, every performance of outrage on shows like TalkTV is not confusion seeking clarity. It is not concern masquerading as care. It is pure and unadorned punishment for the sin of disobedience. But here is what the architects of this machinery refuse to acknowledge, what they cannot afford to admit. The spell is finally, irreversibly broken. People are listening differently now. They hear the pattern repeating, the same tired accusations, the same logical contradictions, the same selective moral standards applied to those who obey versus those who resist. They recognize that volume has never been truth's companion, that loudness is the language of those with nothing left but noise. And in this new clarity, the obsession itself becomes evidence. The cruelty reveals not strength, but fear. The endless contradiction exposes not journalism, but desperation. The system that once controlled narratives through silence and compliance now thrashes against those who refuse to perform their assigned roles. And that thrashing, that's how we know the contract is dead.